There we go. We are recording. Good to go.
Okay, I'd like to call the Wellington Board of Education meeting to order on Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. This is a virtual meeting and 7 o'clock the time.
Herb, do you want me to make my request?
Yes.
So we have Scott Hellman from Colliers here tonight. And I know he has another meeting later on, and I'm going to request that the board move the item 10A from new business to after present to speak. So that way we can get him in and get him moving along to his next meeting.
Okay, I'll I'll entertain a motion to change item 10A to after present to speak, item 3.
So I move that we, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I move that we approve architect for Center Elementary School partial roof replacement and Hall Memorial School full roof replacement projects to item in place of in front of between items 3 and 4 after present.
I second it.
Okay, any discussion relative to the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion is passed, and we will address that after present to speak. The next item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. If you would stand for the pledge. Raise your right hand. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is present to speak. Phil, do we have anyone listed?
I think my administrative team is on for a presentation, so I'm going to assume nobody else is on camera. If there's anybody in the meeting that wants to jump on camera and just wave and let us know, or if you are not on camera and you want to raise your hand. Nope, I think we only have 2 tonight, 2 visitors, and I think we are good to go.
All right, the next order of business is item 10A, which has been moved after present to speak and would be considered probably 3B. And this is deals with the approval of the architect for Center Elementary School, partial roof replacement, and the Hall Memorial School full roof replacement projects. And we have a couple of representatives, do we, Phil, in here this evening?
Yep, we have Scott Pellman. So Catherine, if you could do me a favor and allow me to share my screen, number 1, and unmute Scott Pellman, that would be perfect, please. And Scott is our project manager from Colliers International. We talk on a regular basis now. So let me just give you a little background. I provided you with an overview of the applicants for architectural services for the Center School and Hall School roof projects. We saw 8 proposals, and I'll pull up the grid in a second. We had a $50,000 range between the proposals, which is actually kind of large. Similar to the applicants that when we reviewed for the project management position, I'm going to tell you that I saw a significant difference between the lowest qualified bidder and the second lowest qualified bidder. And Scott's here just to add anything else in. We interviewed the 3 lowest qualified bidders And I am going to share my screen and show you what I sent you today. The groups in each column that you see, those are all the folks that put in bids, so you can see the total on the bottom row. So Capital Studio was 53,000, DCAK was 74. It goes across. And so we interviewed the lowest three qualified folks, which was Hibbard, Jasinski, and Silver. Those three architectural firms, all known. We looked through, just like we did with the committee. The board is the full building committee for the roof replacement project, so you have to be the ones to appoint this. And I'm just moving my camera so I can see you all. And so we went through, and I just wanted to point out, this is no different than when we were hiring for the project manager, and we had qualified candidates. Colliers jumped out at us, and their package was comprehensive. And I'm going to tell you, I saw the same exact thing, and Scott's a neutral party in this, but from the standpoint of what I saw and their experience, it's what I'm going to recommend to the board. And the reasons why: number one, I can show you. Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is Silver's package and a portion of their package. And what I will tell you is, you are looking at the number of roofs they are working on between 2019, 2020, and 2021. What's really important right now is we need an architectural firm that is going to be able to connect with the states and know how to do this electronically, and they know the pitfalls. They've been through this. They've worked through this process already, and it's just around roofs. Typically what you would see is an architectural firm with lots of, could be a building project, it could be an oil tank, it could be, this is just roof projects that we have. And so, I could scroll through their entire package, but it's just as impressive as what we saw from Colliers. It's comprehensive. I don't mean to make you dizzy here, sorry. These are all their roof projects. It's significant. So they jumped out at me. So that was number one. So they have the experience. Number two is they brought a team. When they interviewed, it wasn't one person. They're not a small firm. They brought a team, and they have a large staff that can handle this work. And they also have their own mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineer, which is not always something that an agency, an architectural firm has. They have their own. They would not need to contract out. Why is that important? It's important because we may have some plumbing work that needs to happen to meet code. I will say, all the proposals were good proposals, but theirs was thorough. They came up, and I'm going to let Scott speak to this in a minute, but they spoke about a solution they already had in a problem they saw about, and you can talk about that, Scott, about what they came up with an alternate solution. But they have the experience. The big thing for me was the grant process. They know the players. They've been through it electronically, which during COVID is not everyone's had that experience. And I'm not so sure the lowest bidder had that particular experience. And that's one of the reasons that I'm recommending Silver Petroselli. Scott, what would you like to add to that, if you want to speak to that?
Yeah, just briefly, thank you, Phil. Scott Pellman from Colliers Project Leaders. Pleasure to meet all of you. We put together a very detailed scope with all the architects. We had an online virtual tour of the roofs. Silver Petroselli was one of the firms that attended. Not all of them did. And as Phil just pointed out, we went through a very detailed review with each one of the three low bidders on their scope. One of the bidders, we asked about their plumbing engineers or how they handle some of the structural engineering reviews. Their answer was, well, we're architects and we pretty much do that in-house unless we really feel we're going to get in trouble. A little bit of a red flag there. Look at the recent experiences, as Phil pointed out. Schools right now on their books for 2021, a number of the applicants had one or two roofs dating back to 2019, 2018. Certainly not as much experience in experience with the state. And that's really going to be paramount, is having somebody that, has the lessons learned, is dealing with the state now, because we do want to get these roofs completed this summer. So we're under a very tight schedule. We reviewed that schedule with all of the three architects that we interviewed. Silver Petroselli had put together their own schedule, which in essence mirrored the one that we had put together in the RFP, but demonstrated to us this is exactly how we're going to approach this job to get it done. So I think I concur with Phil after the three interviews, looking at the value and the qualifications. That Silver Petroselli was highly qualified. There is one also additional point to make within their proposal. Assuming that the jobs run concurrently, which we assume they will, they would reduce their construction observation and oversight fees because they would plan on visiting both schools in the same day. They were the only one of the other teams that was not interviewed, was a much higher price, identified a similar cost savings. So their actual cost to do the work is going to be reduced by about $1,400 because of the reduction in the efficiencies that they offered up as part of their proposal within their site visitations.
So I guess number one, do you have any questions? And number two, as far as approval goes, just for the state purposes, I think what you need to do is you need to be able to, obviously we're looking for the same architect, but when you make your motions, you could either do it as, you need to separate out the dollar amounts. So if you are going to make the motion to hire Silver Petroselli, it's to complete the architectural services for the center school partial roof replacement for that dollar amount. And then a second one that would be for the whole school, same architectural firm, dollar amount and full replacement.
So it's partial roof in center and full roof at Hall?
Correct.
Okay.
Now there is, Phil, I'm sorry if I might just interject for a moment. There could be some additional costs, and this was across the board for everyone, to do a little bit of environmental testing. Until they had their consultant out there to review the project, we didn't know what those costs were going to be. It may be more prudent just to accept their proposal for each individual school and reference their proposal in the date of the proposal versus an actual number. We have put together an overall project budget that we're coordinating with Phil. So we do, within our overall project budgets, have identified some contingencies to cover those additional expenditures. But until they visited the roofs, we didn't want them including any environmental testing fees because we really didn't know what those were, and we're not anticipating anything extravagant on that. But we just want to avoid approving a specific dollar amount because that may change slightly.
Ann?
I have two questions. Scott, did you say they were going to do the roof simultaneously? Did you say that? The two
They will
schools?
design them, but what they will do is when they come out to inspect the roofs on a weekly basis, they'll visit one school, let's say for 2 or 3 hours, spend time there, and then go across town and go to the other school. So the efficiencies of doing their field visit all on the same day, they offered up a reduction in their fee.
Excellent. And my second question is, Phil, capital improvement, what had they budgeted for this? I don't remember. Do you know that number? Okay.
I don't know the number off the top of my head. Scott's probably already pulling it because I see him sitting up in his chair, but it's something that we're going to talk about this later on because it might be something we're going to run into. Scott's been working with, whether it's other architectural firms, just getting some numbers and roofing companies, and we're going to have to talk budget. Literally, I think the range we see right now and what we've heard, and Scott chime in if you think I'm off, I've heard everything from $16 a square foot to $28 per square foot. Those are drastically different numbers. Scott has a draft budget that we know of right now that is, somewhere in the middle of that. But until you hire your architect and they actually get out there, we need to look at what the current prices are COVID is playing into this some, honestly. We'll see where it goes.
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
share more later on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Michelle has her hand up.
Michelle?
So you'd like our motion, instead of citing the exact dollar amount, to cite the bids that were presented tonight at this meeting, or is there a different date on the proposal that we should include? I know we have to get this motion just right.
Right, I would reference their proposal dated March 2nd, 2021.
March 2nd, okay.
Okay.
I have one question,
Yes.
it's Donna. When you were scrolling, did I see E.O. Smith on the list of schools that they've done this for?
Yes, good question. Yes, you did.
Okay, and since we have such a close relationship with E.O. Smith, have you found out if E.O. Smith was happy with them?
Herb, you're on
Herb?
the board.
Was E.O. Smith happy with them?
As far as I know, they've done a very good job. I haven't heard any complaints at all regarding the putting the roof together. It seemed to have worked out very well for E.O. Smith.
Thank you very much.
The other question, I have a question, Phil, in regard to the operation. They say they're going to be working on Hall School maybe, and then they'll switch over to Center School. They'll have a timeline, won't they, in regard to this project?
Yes, yes. They
So
built their own.
even though they have other projects that they're working on, and they assume their personnel will be working other places as well.
Correct.
Will we be aware of the timeline so we know where we are in regard to that?
Yes, we actually have it. They put it in their proposal. And there's one thing that, this is specific to this firm, is they have architects that only do roofs. I don't know if I don't think that's a common thing. Scott, I'll defer to you on that one, but it was something that set them apart that I did not hear from other firms. So
Right.
they definitely have the capacity to handle this project.
Yeah, I only know of one other firm that has employed a roofing specialist in this manner that also performed a lot of roofing work. And unfortunately, a few months ago, that individual for this other firm passed away. So, but yeah, it's an area that they focus on. I think you can see by the number of projects that it's an area where they've had a lot of success.
Okay. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Okay, I guess we're ready to move forward on a motion. Michelle, you said you were putting something together?
Sure. So I move that we accept the bid from Silver Petroselli for the bid dated March 2nd, 2021 for the partial roof replacement at Center School.
I second it. Elena
Okay,
Testa.
the motion is moved and seconded. Any further discussion relative to the motion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion is unanimous and passes. And
You want a second motion?
yes,
Okay, so I move that we accept the bid from Silver Petroselli that was submitted on March 2nd, 2021 for the full roof replacement of Hall Memorial School.
I second it. Elena Testa.
okay. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Abstentions? The motion is passed. Okay, Phil, anything else on that
Oh,
item?
thanks, Scott. I think we'll be talking tomorrow morning.
Terrific. Pleasure meeting all of you. Have a
Thank
good
you for
evening.
coming.
Thank you,
Thank
Scott.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for bumping that up.
Moving forward to the chairman's report. I have a couple of items I'd like to mention this evening. One is that most of you are aware of the fact, probably anyway, but this is Board of Education Member Appreciation Month. And the appreciation to you as a Board of Education member for the time and devotion, really, you do spend on board business during the past year and during the course of the year. We don't, normally we give away cups and a dinner and certificates and all those nice things, but we're dealing remotely. So we just want to thank you for everything that you do. Also, I want to mention the fact that Charlene Russell Tucker was appointed acting state commissioner of the state of Connecticut State Department of Education. And the reason she was appointed recently is because the former Connecticut Commissioner of Education, Miguel Cardona, was confirmed by the U.S. Senate to serve as Secretary of the U.S. Department of Education. And this should make everyone in education in Connecticut proud, because he is, he's one of us, I guess, and he has represented us at the State House for quite a while. He has had a lot of influence, a lot of friends, and now we also have a direct line to the secretary at the federal level. So he's well known by many people in Connecticut, including Cabe and Craig and all of the people around Hartford especially. Another item too is I understand that more people are, including our teachers, receiving a COVID-19 vaccine. This is really significant, and it's really great news. And I feel sure that this will continue to help our schools and keep them open, and keep our students thriving. Also, the Board of Education budget for 2021-22 was presented to the Board of Finance on, I believe, February 25th by our superintendent. I was also present. Apparently, I think the superintendent did an excellent job in presenting our budget, and the members of the Board of Finance asked a lot of great questions, and they're going to be reviewing our budget, and they'll get back to Phil and I, and we may meet with them again on anything that they have. They were happy with the percent increase for sure. So that's about where we are with it. It's in their hands right now, and we'll see where it goes from there. Also, moving on to communications. The item A, status of the current Board of Ed legal representation. I think that, Phil, you sent a letter, didn't you? As part of communications? You sent a letter to all board members?
I believe everyone got it, yes.
Everyone has had a copy. Has anyone not read it yet?
I've not read it. It wasn't in my board packet.
It probably is, but just briefly, it's from Shenny and Musler, our attorney, and Craig Musier is no longer a member of the firm, and he serviced us over the years. He's moving to Maryland, and so that Shenny Associates want to really remain as our legal people, so and personnel. So they have sent us a letter regarding this issue and indicating where they're located and the rates they're going to charge and things of that kind. And the last couple of statements, we've appreciated the opportunity to represent Wellington Board of Education, and I welcome the opportunity to serve you in the future. Feel free to call our office for any questions regarding the contents of this letter. So they are our attorneys. I don't know if, Phil, you have anything where you want to say regarding this.
No, Craig called me and we talked, just so he gave me a heads up. His last day is March 12th. And he has basically given Chris Cheney all of the information, you know, anything that's current. And obviously Craig has been the board attorney for the go-to person for many years now. And Chris Cheney is his partner. You still have the retainer there. The fees would be the same. You know, I think you really have a couple of choices. One is you figure out if you want to talk about it tonight, you have a long agenda, or if you just want to let it be until next month and think about it and come up with maybe more of a long-term plan. If you wanted to, you know, have a small committee talk to, you know, that's up to the board.
Well, we can postpone it, can't we, until next meeting?
Yes.
Give everyone an opportunity to digest the letter and decide whether we want to continue with them or not, and see where it goes for there. In any event, if we have to use them, we can use them at the present time, right?
Correct.
Is everyone okay with that? Okay, we're ready to move on now to item 6 on the agenda, which is a presentation of this is the CES and All Memorial School achievement data. Presentation by our superintendent and our principals.
So the board had requested. Oh, sorry, Herb.
Okay, go ahead, Phil.
The board had requested some, because you haven't had SBAC data, just to kind of get a sense of where is the district at. So we have the administrative team and I sat down over several, you know, meetings to go through our data. We're going to show you one piece of the puzzle tonight. We have Rich Napoli as the center school principal. We have Mary Kate Shaughnessy, who's the middle school principal, and we have Marsha McGinley, who's a special education director. Which is your title? Pupil services or special education director? She's all of those things in Wellington. And so we're going to share a presentation with you. We're really wanted to, the things we were looking at that we wanted to share. Where are our students at based upon one piece of data? And is there an impact? Do we see an impact as a result of COVID on learning? And so I'm going to let the administrators, I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to let the administrators jump in. So there's the first, this is, and I can send you a copy of this afterwards if you'd like. You can see my screen all correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. So like Phil mentioned, we really want to take a look and see where our students are, you know, K through 8 currently. I know the presentation states Iready dating presentation, but that's one key to the puzzle. You know, like Phil said, it's, you know, I want you to think of a student profile as a photo album, right? Iready is a snapshot. It's one data piece. It's one tool that we use to kind of gauge where students are, and sometimes to compare it against SBAC and to use it as kind of a, you know, the standards are aligned to that assessment. And it's kind of like a way to help build stability or you know, their testing abilities as they approach the SBAC, which of course, as you know, we missed last spring due to the pandemic. So this slide here shows basically different tools we use. I know Mr. Tormey was on the screen on the call here. Different tools he would use in his second grade classes all the way up through 8th grade. So certain assessments are more appropriate or more fitting for elementary. So as you can see here, just a quick list. There are a number of tools we use. The Easy CBM, it's really a fluency read. It's a fluency test, like a Dibbles assessment for those of you that have experience in education from the board. That really gives us a good indication of how many words were read correctly and how accurate, is their reading. A developmental reading assessment is a DRA. That's really it's an individual assessment that the teacher would do, a certified teacher, where it's really administered to test their reading ability. They're going to identify their reading levels, their accuracy, fluency, and then of course, ultimately is comprehension. The ultimate goal is how are kids comprehending, inferring and drawing conclusions. So these DRAs are done by number, 10, 20, 30, et cetera, 18, 16. So the teachers would provide this assessment for individual students to get a good read as to where they are, with their reading. ESGI, which stands for, there's so many acronyms in education, as you know, Educational Software for Guiding Instruction, ESGI. We purchased this for our kindergarten classes the last 2 years. It was a tool they were using and we found it beneficial, so we invested in it. It's really for those early literacy and numeracy skills that they use an iPad with individually with the student, and they're reading back and forth number identification as well as sounds and the alphabet. So our 2 K teachers use that regularly, and that's how they use that. They use that tool to gauge where kids are with those early skills. Lexi is an online program that really hones in on phonics. Again, more elementary. Some kids may use this more at the older level, older grades, or even middle school for more intervention, but primarily a K-2 program. And of course, both at Center and Hall, we're looking at formative and summative different types of unit assessments that each grade level has, whether it's a language arts or a math assessment that again align with the Common Core standards. And the big one, of course, that kind of culminates everything is SBAC. We don't have results from the spring of 20, but we do have results from years past, of course. But SBAC is another tool. We look at attendance, folks. If a kid is not in school every day, whether remotely or in school on campus, that impacts their learning, that impacts their understanding and education. Participation, after school programs, of course, this is pre-COVID. We are limited with our after school programs, whether they're sports or extracurricular activities, mostly at the middle school. We've had some programs in the past at Center. And then also looking at discipline, is the child missing class due to some discipline issues? How are we helping to intervene, assist children, not just to be, punitive, but more restorative, where we're trying to help kids get back on track into the classroom so they're learning successfully with their peers socially. So, and of course, Iready is the other tool that we're going to talk about more tonight in greater detail. So again, think of a profile of a child, and we could be missing a couple, but this is the majority of them that the grade levels use, either for goal setting or freely to understand where kids are academically. These are all pictures, in a photo album that we like to get to really get a good read that drives our work for whether it's special ed or for intervention through the RTI process with regular ed.
Next slide, Phil.
Should be there, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there is a video that we're going to show you, which is an overview of Iready. And the district went to Iready a couple of years back. They had originally been using something called STAR assessing. And when they were using STAR, they realized that the students were really acing STAR, and it really wasn't an indicator of where they needed support and intervention, and also where they could be enriched. So we did embed this video for you so that you could see sort of what the Iready platform offers teachers, because it's not just a test that kids take, it's an entire suite of programs and goods that teachers can use to help address those areas where kids might be falling down, and also address areas where kids might need extension, enrichment, and some sort of growth. So Phil, if you wanna play that.
Tell me, what do I need to do for sound? Can you hear it?
Close out of your share screen. And then go back in, and in the bottom left, just you want to click on enable audio.
Go share screen again.
Yep,
Share screen.
bottom left corner. Share computer sound.
Got it. Thank you.
And K through 8 math and reading are fundamental. But how do you deliver the right instruction when every student has unique needs? Introducing Iready Diagnostic and Instruction. Iready is a complete web-based system that identifies your students' challenges and fixes them. Designed for both math and reading, Iready gives individualized instruction to every student in your school or district. It provides a way to move the dial with below, at grade, and above grade level kids. Iready provides a comprehensive approach that includes diagnostic, reporting, instruction, and progress monitoring, all in one system. Iready Diagnostic allows you to screen all students and quickly and automatically identify student needs down to the sub-skill level. Unlike other systems, Iready is an adaptive diagnostic that determines exactly where a student is performing, no matter what their grade level. The adaptive process varies the questions asked based on the student's responses. This helps you see where the problems are and why a student is struggling. Iready's easy-to-read reports show where every student stands. A district-level view gives administrators a clear indication of overall performance and the extent of intervention needed in the district. Classroom reports provide teachers with a wealth of information. They can quickly see which students need intervention, how to group them for instruction, and the key areas to focus on. Profile reports provide an action plan for each student. Teachers can download classroom instructional resources targeted for individuals and for small groups. And based on the diagnostic results, Iready personalizes a custom combination of lessons for each student. Hundreds of foundational lessons provide explicit instruction in math and reading using real-world scenarios. And guided practice helps to reinforce skills and understanding. Finally, graded activities at the end of every lesson allow for progress monitoring. It's immediate and continuous, and it shows results from the individual student up to the entire district. Iready is designed to address Common Core state standards. And it can be used for RTI, for special education, ELL students, or for your entire student population. It's time to use educational technology to improve performance and deliver better results. Iready uses customized instruction to move the greatest number of students up to grade level. And it does it at an affordable price. Iready Diagnostic and Instruction from Curriculum Associates. If you need to raise achievement, then you're ready for Iready.
So as the video stated, Iready is not just a test, it also has lesson plans embedded in it for teachers who have specific skills that they may want to address with specific groups of students. It is not a blanket, so every student has areas and a report that's printed out of what they need to achieve and where they fell or where they landed in an achievement scope. Typically, in a typical year, it's administered 3 times. So you have a fall when students first come to school, probably around October, then you have one in around January, early February, and then you'll have one in May. We did not have one in May this past year because of COVID. So we only had fall and winter of our 2019-2020 school year, and we have fall and winter for our current school year now. Obviously, the plan is that we're going to be administering it again in May, and we'll be able to see a full range of growth for those students. The Iready testing allows for targeted instruction and also enrichment, as I mentioned. It also enables teachers to see trends. So if teachers are seeing that students are not getting inferencing, or perhaps in math, they're not understanding like reciprocal fractions or equivalency, they can then look at the curriculum to see whether or not we're specifically addressing those things. It allows for better analytics in that case. It also then allows teachers to indicate growth. So a student may have a test score on a specific day, but we're hoping to see that student grow over time. So even if a student shows up at approaching grade level, we want that student to show incremental growth toward some goal at the end. Iready was first started in fall of 2019. It was brand new for our kids. So there was some level of adjustment as they were getting ready from the STAR assessment. The Iready test is a computer test, so it's adaptable, so that a student's level and answers will depend on what their next question is going to be. And it is individualized depending on what a student answers and how the student progresses through the test. Sometimes it ends after 20 minutes. Sometimes it ends after 60 minutes. One of the beautiful things about Iready is it also does indicate if a student has rushed. So it flags them and we can see whether or not they've gone too fast. If that's the case, then they then have to retake the test so that we can get a better idea. So there's really shouldn't be a lot of fluky results, because kids are monitored and it's timed.
And I'll say it's much more engaging too for the kids. The platform is very user-friendly and very kid-friendly, where there's games involved that they embed into it that kind of give them a little mind break, where they think they're having fun, but they're learning at the same time. So it's very kid-friendly, very characteristic. There's a lot of fun graphics to it. So it's been a good change since STAR. So this is a lot here, folks. It's a very busy slide, but I'm going to simplify this for you as best I can. So again, like Mary Kay mentioned, we've only had 2 cycles of Iready. I remember specifically having that training in August of 19 with all the staff. So it's new to the admin team as well as teachers. So we haven't had a great deal of time learning and digging into the program because of its newness. And then of course, COVID came last March, almost a year ago. So looking at this slide in a nutshell, again, you see 2 cycles. We're going to do the May cycle come this May 21. But what this has here, folks, is basically a comparison of 3 different levels. So your green is where you want to have our students. So we're talking about students in grades 2 through 8. First grade did test in fall of 19. We gave it a little bit of a test to see how first graders would do with the iPads we have. And we discovered they're a little bit too young, but we included that data in this because this is by cohort. So if you take a look, in the fall of 19, grade 1, they took the assessment in October and then again in the winter, about January, February. Now, if you look to the right, thank you, Phil, that's the current grade 2 class. So this data carries with them. So we're talking about the same students from each group of kids. So that was the first grade class in the fall of 19. And now this is the second grade class, Mr. Tormey's classes in the fall of 2020. So kids in the green are students that are on or above grade level. In the yellow are students that are really approaching, and it could be off by a point, folks. Like sometimes it's the program is very critical where they might be off by 1 point and they didn't meet the mark, but really a teacher knows from their work with the child, they're really at grade level or better. They're doing fine. They may just have missed a question and it put them in a different category. And then in the red, of course, is students that may be below grade level, okay, that need extra practice or work, and they're receiving intervention in the classroom. So looking at this, you see second, like if I can go to, for example, let's look at the 3rd grade class. You know, they had from the fall of 19 to the winter of 20, they jumped up 2 points, okay, from the testing. And then that class is now in 4th grade. They were at 21% in the fall, and they've jumped up to 37%. So again, it's very hard because it's a new program, and you know they had to really adapt to it. But we don't have a full cycle of 2 full years here, but we wanted to give you kind of a snapshot of where we are currently. So looking at from the fall and winter of 19 to 20, there was about a 17% average growth from grades 1 through 7, or 1 through 8, I should say. All right. And then looking at winter of 20 to fall of 20 to winter of 21, I'm sorry, winter of 20 to winter of 21, there was roughly a 7.7 average in growth. Now that's taking all grades into consideration. Obviously, some are stronger than others, but for the most part, and looking at this very busy slide, because there's a lot of numbers, a lot of percentages, we took a very close look at this, both schools. You know, there is growth in the grade levels. You know, it is nice to see some steady growth. There's a lot of students that are in the approaching, you know, as you could see there in the middle, that yellow, you think of a, you know, stoplight, green, yellow, red, you know, and we're pushing them closer to the green side. So again, it's the newness to the program, missing really 6 months of school from March until September. Considering that and not having a third data point for the diagnostic for last spring, and then we have a new one coming up, we feel, you know, pretty good that we've been seeing some gains within the program, and it's been helping, you know, our students in the classroom. So that's a nutshell with this slide. Of course, if you have questions at the end or right now, if you want, Laura.
Yeah, just when you say the green is on or above grade level, is that where they should be at the end of that grade? Like, should we see, is it that we're looking at May 2021? That's when all those kids should be in that green? Is that,
Yeah,
that kind of depends where on, like, you know, when during that grade are we talking about that they're on grade level?
right. That's a good point, because there are different levels, like your DIBELS or an assessment that you're doing that's nationally normed. At different points of the year, they have different cut scores that establish what is meeting grade level. So this is a standard view. There's others early on. So if I were to project, there's so much data from this program, which is good. If we were to project right now or show you early beginning of year, we'd have a lot more kids in the green because it depends on the time of the year. So this would be based on end of year right now. We thought that would be a fair assessment. So they're a little more rigorous in terms of, okay, we need the kids to be here. You know, there's cut scores, they're in the hundreds as to where they should be based on the end of year scores.
Okay, thank you.
So this could vary, but the slide would be so much busier and it would, you know, just be even more confusing to review. So, well, good question.
So the next slide is English language arts. And as Rich mentioned, it has the 3 levels. Red is below grade level, yellow is approaching, and green is on or above. To Laura's point, I do want to mention that in ELA, in the green, we have students, I know in you know, the middle school who are reading at a high school level. So when we say on or above, we're talking about, could be leaps and bounds above, or it could be, as Rich mentioned, the point range is very narrow toward the lower end. So say, for example, a student might be 1 point away and be in the yellow, but have answered, if they answered one more question right, they could be in the green. As you can see, fall of 19 to fall of 20, we have, the numbers are not that different in terms of who is below grade level. So in terms of learning loss, I would, if I could make a generalization, I would say that our students are really resilient, and we're blessed in that we have instructional strength going on in the classroom. We have things that are happening that where kids are really being able to generalize and take those generalizations to the test. Again, as Rich mentioned, this is a snapshot. So you're looking at one situation where a student is taking an assessment. We do have many other things that we have students do and complete, and we assess. So when we look at whether a student is having difficulty, this is one piece. We look at many other things before we decide whether or not they require intervention, and they may need intervention in a very small area. It could be context clues, it could be phonological awareness, things like that. But for the most part, we're moving kids. You want to see the reds decrease and you want to see the greens increase, which is what we're seeing across the board, which is very, it's a very good feeling to know. And we haven't actually seen the May 2021 yet. And that would be that would take us one full cycle through the testing.
If I can add, think about, this is now computer-based and the kids are individualized and they're being monitored, but they're on their own independently. So we're going to get the clickers of the world that may not be excited about this, and you're going to get really great test takers, and we all fit somewhere in that formula. So again, it's like I said, it's one piece of the puzzle, one photo in the album, because we have kids that don't do well on these. We have some kids that may not take it due to special needs or test anxiety, and we get a better picture of them through another assessment that we spoke of. So this is a small picture, just like SBAC, but I think a good indication of where we are as a school system with grades 2 through 8.
This is also a district level. You're looking at a district view right now.
Right.
They can really whittle down to every individual student that's taken this, and they can look at their individual scores, strengths, areas of concern. You find an area of concern and the teacher has other assessments to say, no, they've got it. That's what why the multiple pieces are important, why the multiple assessments are important. This is that snapshot.
Yeah, it drills down by student. We look at individual kids by domain, and we can then potentially group kids based on areas of strength or areas of efficiency that need more work.
So one of the things we did when we looked at these results is we have developed, and we continue to develop, the action steps that we're taking to make sure that we are targeting the instruction for all students. Because as Rich mentioned, there may be some students who do not take this test, and there may be some students who receive special education services, and we already have them identified and have interventions ready. But we have all of those students in our student population, and we have to be sure that we are meeting their needs. So we use all of that data, the Iready data and other types of school data that was mentioned in that previous slide, including discipline, including attendance, including engagement. With remote learning, we do have kids who may not be signing on to Zoom, may be doing all their Google assignments, may not be doing the Google assignments, but love to be on Zoom. So we have constant meetings in both of our schools to discuss these kids. We have students who perhaps are receiving intervention services during that learning lab time in center. We have the WIN period, which is what I need in Hall Memorial. Those are students who may go to the intervention room or then receive targeted intervention in their classrooms with their subject area teachers. We have students who receive special education supports, and those things are embedded in their IEP and are directly addressed by their goals. And we have those IEP and PPT meetings annually, and then we have the triennial meetings when we redo their testing. We have, at HMS, we have a student assistance team. We meet weekly and we discuss students who may be having attendance issues, who may start to show some academic problems, who we see are having difficulty with peer relationships, who are having problems with social and emotional things that are coming up. Maybe their parents are going through something. We're such a small town that we're able to truly address the needs of those kids and do so in a discreet and confidential way and support them in school. At center, the same thing occurs in their data teams, where they monitor the academic and social and emotional growth of the student, because all of those things fit together. If a student feels comfortable and successful, they are going to then do better every single day. You have to address that hierarchy of needs where they feel all of their basic needs are met, and then they can begin to really achieve their goals. Center also has an attendance committee that takes a look at students actually being in school. And research has shown that attendance is a huge piece of how successful a student is. If they're not present in the building or not present in the classroom, they're not going to get the instruction. So we work really, really hard to make sure those kids are engaged, to the point of home visits, going well above and beyond what we would typically do, because we know it's really important. We have Google Classroom and Seesaw that are being utilized for students who are remote, and we communicate and actually even in person, we communicate with families through that. It can send emails and parents can understand more about what the student has to do every single day. And they're more on top of and kept abreast of what a kid has to do. The school staff, we have received tremendous amounts of professional development and learning in social and emotional development of kids, because we have come to discover with the pandemic, which is really a blessing in disguise, that students need that connection. And we are working really hard to make sure that happens. And then lastly, the teachers are working to keep track of those remote learners that are perhaps not engaging, and to ensure that the students that they see in person and the students that they see outside of the building are getting the same level of instruction. Because next year, let's please pray, fingers crossed, everybody's going to be back. We want to make sure that there's little to no gap in what the students who have been remote have experienced. And, we have continual meetings and contacts and things to make sure that we are meeting everybody's needs. Does anybody have any questions?
I have some questions, Donna. Could you go back to the first slide with the graph? Well, yeah, the next. All right, I just want to look at that a second. All right, and then the second slide with the graph. I am really concerned about the numbers in red that I'm seeing, especially with our current 7th graders, because they didn't look, this is the English, the prior one was the math, correct?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that there's such a high percentage of our students that are below in the red column is very concerning to me. I don't know how this compares to the tests that were done before this Iready. If you look at what the 5th graders in the fall of 2018 looked like, if it's just that particular group. But these are scary numbers for me to see this many students failing, basically.
Well, I want to caution you there, because it's not failing. It is where, as we talked about, it could be that they missed a question to get them to that red level. One of the things that we need to also take into consideration is the 7th grade is the smallest grade of the entire district. So numerically, when you look at statistics, if you have 25 kids and there's a higher, the percentages might be skewed. I do agree with you that those numbers do appear higher. I think we need to wait until May to see how they progress through the grade. Also, not 100% of all students take the test. So this is just indicative of the students who did take the test. So
what do you have on the, I know that we can't see it at an individual level, because I do not want to know about individual students. That would be inappropriate. But you can, if you pull out that 1 or 2 students that are at the very bottom, because it's possible that they are throwing off the curve.
Yes.
Where does everybody else sit? And those students that haven't taken this, if they're getting other assessments, if you had to put them in the same graph based upon whatever assessments you're using, would they fall in the red, the yellow, or the green?
I don't know if we can say with any accuracy to answer that question. I do think that,
Mary Kay, let me say something real quick.
okay.
One of the things that I think that we do with this, Donna, and you're right, that number jumps out at you. specifically the 43 in the winter. And one of the things, and this is why we look at the data, and my administrative team is probably tired of hearing me say this, is that if you look at that data and that 43% matches the other data that you have, you better tell me that they have a plan in place. And that plan in place either better be in the identification process towards special education, already identified towards special education, already in intervention, whether it's a tier 2, or a tier 3. Tier 3 would be the highest level of supports. But I want to know that there's an individual plan for each of those students. And they have heard me say this over and over, and that's the response and why the individual data is so important. So when we see a number, we always like to match things up. If Phil Stevens takes the Iready assessment and bombs it, but Phil Stevens has straight A's in class, all of his other assessments look great, we want to know why, what happened. And we're going to probably talk to Phil Stevens, the teacher will. If all of my assessment data matches and it's good, we just keep moving. But if something's not matching up, that's where we hone down into the individual skills. Sometimes you'll see a student that missed an entire area. They have no concept of the geometry portion of the math assessment, or and they missed it all, and it brings their score down. That's where, when we get into the really fine pieces of the individual data, we can make some impact. But really the key is we want to know that it matches, and are the supports in place? And the answer is yes, they are.
Because when we moved to Wellington 20 years ago, these were blue ribbon schools. And I can tell you that these weren't the kind of numbers that were being generated to be a blue ribbon school. I mean, I'm concerned about the trends. I'm concerned when you have 76% of the third graders doing really well, and now you only have 46% of the third graders doing really well. Some of the trends are positive, like the second graders going from 6% to 44%, but that's still, in most cases, more than half of our students by winter of 2021 aren't meeting the standards.
Remember though, Donna, those are end of year standards. 44% of our current third grade is already meeting end of year standard.
So why are they being tested? It's difficult to tell if they're on track if you're using where you're supposed to be in 5 months or 6 months from where you are now. I mean, it's good. That's good to know that 44% have already met the goals, and those kids probably need to be encouraged to move beyond the third grade level. Maybe they could start doing fourth grade work because they're ready for it. But if we've got 28% of the kids who aren't even close and we're over halfway, I just find these alarming.
But as Phil mentioned, students who are showing deficiencies are being addressed. And I don't think, as I mentioned, we're going to have a better picture until we have a May administration of the test. And again, this is simply one diagnostic measure. It should not be used as a ruler that shows you overall. It's one snapshot of a full picture.
Mm-hmm. There's many variables too, Donna, that come into consideration. Even if you think about summer regression, you could see sometimes the fall score is a little bit lower than the winter scores. These are more rigorous numbers because we could have projected earlier the beginning of the year, mid-year, and end of year, but this is more of a higher expectation based on the fact that this is end of year May scoring that we are expecting. So we're probably a little too harsh right now with these numbers because we could technically have the fall numbers there with beginning of year expectations for these grade levels. But they are a hard number. There are a number of variables. And again, it is one picture. We see your point for certain, but it's one piece of the pie. And, you know, it is a new program, but we do, like Phil said, we are very closely, especially in data teaming, you know, we're looking very closely and drilling down to individual kids and talking about their profile, making sure that we're ruling out and saying, well, they'll say to me, Rich, this kid is not a test taker. I know this kid is on grade level with reading. He's phenomenal. You know, so the Iready might even be taken out of the formula, but it is a piece of the pie that we look at and say, hey, there's a red flag here. Do we need to be concerned? Is this going to qualify this kid for extra support? Or is it just one more data point that may not be a good indication of this child's success or their abilities?
Thank you very much.
Anyone else have a question?
Yes, I'd like to ask. Is it okay? Elena Testa. It's okay?
Mhm.
Yeah. So as you said, the green column says gives you information on the grade level, end of the year grade level. I just want to understand it. Then if we look at, for example, fall 2020 means the first grader or second grader, 28% of second graders, they already meet the year end expectation. So what are we doing for this? Oh, the third grade or eighth grade, 56% or 47%.
Right.
So what are we doing with those kids for the whole year if they are already there?
So as I mentioned, the Iready platform does provide teachers with enrichment and extension activities. And if a teacher knows that a student is above grade level, the differentiation that they do in that classroom will allow that student to move maybe at a faster pace. Maybe they will do an extension activity on something so that, you know, that teacher is aware of the range of scores in their room and then begins to tailor lessons and tailor experiences so that that student can move ahead at their rate.
So a good example, Lena, is I had a first grade teacher, Mrs. Lee, approach me and say, Rich, I have this student who's really advanced in math. Can I use Iready as a tool to enrich him? And she did, and he's like at a third or fourth grade math level. And he's stumped right now, but she picked different lessons through Iready after a diagnostic that he can continue to do some type of extension work. So absolutely. It is, again, it's one tool, but they also are differentiating. They're using Learning Lab and WIN at the middle school to really try to enrich kids. And, you know, 13%, yeah, already at that high standard is great. And then we're going to have those kids, you know. So we do our best to try to not only help those that are needing extra support, but those that may be already at grade level or beyond that could use some enrichment. So that's the differentiation piece.
Thank you.
Sure.
I don't know if Marcia McGinley, if
Okay.
you wanted to add anything. No.
Anyone's hand up, Phil? I can't see it.
I'm going to stop sharing this so I can see everybody too. Anybody else that wanted to
Yeah.
ask? Oh, Laura has her hand up.
Yeah, I just have one more kind of quick question. I'm wondering, you administer it 3 times a year, and I'm wondering how long those administrations take. How much of the instructional time is being used to administer these tests?
So we provide a window for teachers to take the test, and then typically it is within a block of time. So say, you know, it's a day. The 8th grade does their math at one period and their reading in another period. We don't like to take too much instructional time for this. If a student requires extra time, they can finish it during their WIN period, but they have got to finish it within a certain time window. It's not like extended.
So it is timed.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's not timed. It's given at a certain time and then the students take it. There are some students who may not, because it's adapted,
Right.
and it goes according to how a student does, they may not finish it in that time period, so they can continue it at a later time.
Okay, thank you.
They take
Average
to
time?
assess.
Go ahead, Rich. Average time?
You know, it varies by kid. Average maybe 2 hours, hour and a half for assessment. It depends on the kid.
Total.
Yeah.
Total.
I mean, when we first started this, it was very much a change, and the teachers were like, "Wow, this is much longer than STAR." But again, it's mirroring more of SBAC. It's more engaging. The kids have those mind break with the games, and it's pushing some kids to really go further until they plateau, and then they get a level. So the program's working to get an accurate read on them to a point where it's trying to give a fluency read too, which is near impossible in my opinion. But based on their input or their responses, they're trying to get all types of data points on the kids. But you know, it does adapt, so it does take some time to get an idea where the kids are academically with reading and math. But it could be time consuming at sometimes with some kids. Certain kids, they're so meticulous with their work and they take their time and break down the problems that they're not flying through it. So, which is good.
We can bring this data back, the May data back too, once it comes in at the end of the year, so you can see kind of the progression and you know, anytime I look at the data and I still see students in red, I want to know where did that student start and where did they finish, and that's something that we're always looking at. And if they're just going on a consistent trajectory and they're never going to catch up, we change their plan.
Right.
And if they are going to catch up, we keep them on that same plan so they can get out of that red. Sometimes it takes more than a year to do that.
The timing was very tricky with the newness of the program, with the pandemic that occurred, changing from STAR to Iready, not being able to take it in May, not having SBAC. And don't forget, folks, last spring, when we started distance learning in March 16th, we started with Iready as a major tool. And we did not want to have the kids get burnt out by the Iready. So that was their primary tool until we really shifted gears after April break and started using the Seesaw platform and more teacher-directed lessons. So there's a chunk of time that they were using this program too, and we didn't want them to dislike it because there are intervention components that teachers assign to the kids. We have so many licenses. So the timing was, I think, really not perfect based on how it all came about in Willington.
Question.
Laura has her hand up.
As you were
Laura?
talking, it made me think of
Go
something
ahead.
else. So within taking the test, are there built-in accommodations for your students with IEPs? I mean, I know it's a diagnostic test, but I was wondering if it also, if there are accommodations for your students with IEPs taking it.
Yeah, most students are, not exempt from taking the test if they have an IEP. Most of the time, the students will be offered a separate setting so they can go into a more quiet area, usually with their special ed case manager who can assist them kind of through the test. So there's accommodations like that, that they can be assisted. Sometimes their special ed case manager may assist them in reading some of the information on the test, but a lot of it, we'd like them to do without those accommodations so we can get a good diagnostic tool of where they're at. But they have that adult support with them, to monitor them throughout it.
Can you unmute Tracy, please, Catherine? Thank you.
Hi, just in a reference to Elena's question about that 56% in the fall of 8th grade. That's taking into account that some of those students are actually in algebra rather than in 8th grade math, which doesn't come through there. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what you're at.
So I know that, I have a student who graduated from 8th grade last year, and I know that some students are in algebra, some are in pre-algebra or 8th grade math, and some are in algebra. So that might change how that looks because they've already been, they're in a higher level math class than an 8th, not that an 8th grader, but you know what I mean? Because they could go from 8th grade to algebra 2 because they've taken that 8th grade class at Hall School.
And this would
might be that 56% is those kids who are in that algebra class, making that look a little more.
Correct. And this is, again, one of the tools that we look at across many scores teacher recommendations, who's ready for algebra.
And we actually, just this year, there were, I think, 3 students in regular 8th grade math who we were able to identify as ready for algebra, and we moved them. So there, you know, a student's success on this exam or whatever it, you know, on this assessment, if you will, whatever they achieve on this allows us to take a look at how we're looking at their program and make sure that we're meeting all of their needs.
It's also important to just mention kind of the process and how we support those kids who are below grade level. And as we've talked about how this is just one snapshot, we would look at the whole student's, you know, photo album, as Rich, I like how you put that, Rich, their photo album. And if that photo album is kind of telling us that, you know, they are below grade level in many different areas, not just on Iready, many different areas, then we increase the level of intervention. You know, so you might have heard of tier 1 intervention, which is for all students. Tier 2 intervention, which is a smaller, you know, maybe some group work with some other students that need that intervention. Tier 3 may be one-on-one intervention. We provide those types of interventions typically for 6 to 8 weeks. We progress monitor as we go along. And then if that snapshot, that photo album is still telling us that the student is not making the progress that we'd like to see with those levels of intervention, that's when we look towards going to a referral for special ed to test to determine if a student has a disability. So there's a progressive level of intervention that is progress monitored all throughout the way to make sure that, you know, either that student's making growth. We talked about the growth model. That's so important here because that's what we're looking for. Is the student making growth? If that student is not making growth, then we're going past that tier 3 intervention up to special education to, you know, test to see if there is a disability that's impeding their success. So I think that's important to kind of just paint that picture for you to let you know how we progress through intervention phases for students.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you very much for a very enlightening report, and we look
Glad we could enlighten you, Herb.
we look forward to the next report on this, and I'm sure that our students will make good progress under this program that you have, the Iready data.
Thank you.
Thanks again for coming in this evening and covering this material with us.
Thanks, Edmund. Thank you to the admin team. You guys can feel free to sign off. I know you've had a long day.
Thank you. And I do want to thank everybody for the vaccine clinic. I think it certainly was phenomenal, and I'm happy that there's a light at the end of that tunnel.
Great.
We're in a good place. Schools are doing well.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Good night.
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 Okay, moving from item 6 to the superintendent's report. Does anyone want to take a break at this point? Or shall we continue?
Get some water.
I guess everyone's all set.
I'm going to take 2 minutes.
2 minutes for water would be good.
Okay, we'll recess for about 3 or 4 minutes, okay?
Catherine, if you want to pause the recording, and then we come back.
What we're working on is.
Hold on, Herb, hold on. Oh, thank you. Catherine did it. Thank you. She started the recording again.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, we're on item 7, superintendent's report.
Thanks.
I.
All right, so the enrollment update. So our current enrollment at center school is 210 students. We're up a couple there. We have 183 students that are learning on campus, and only 13%, 27 students are learning fully remote. So it's shrinking. More students are coming back. Our current enrollment at Hall is the same. It's 194 students. We have 149 students learning on campus, and 45 students, which is 23%, learning fully remote. That number has come down as well. So our current district average is 18% of the district is learning fully remote. That number is creeping down. We are seeing people that have been out actually all year long starting to move back. which is good. As far as the COVID school operations, we had our first vaccination clinic today at Hall School. It was hosted by Eastern Highlands Health District. This has taken a lot of time in my office, but we had a great turnout today. We had about approximately 100 members of our staff participate. It was between 10 a.m. and 4:45. We had a schedule. They came through. I had talked to Herb, and Herb and I agreed that I would call an early dismissal for today, and that allowed us to complete the vaccination process. And there will be more on that later on the agenda tonight. The next clinic is scheduled for April 6th. And again, I'll share some more details about that later on. Our staff continues to implement all of our COVID protocols and schedules. I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud, but I have not had to do some contact tracing in quite some time. So we are doing well. The students have been utilizing the carports for mask breaks. We are looking forward to warmer weather. Where we can not have to worry about the snow. We have our quote unquote circus tents that one for each school that we will be setting up. Again, once there's no snow, it'll just be another outdoor instructional space, a mask break space on those crummy days. But we're looking forward to really being able to open our windows and let that fresh air in. So as far as COVID operations, we're doing quite well. And we did just receive some updated information about music. So there will be some adjustments to music classes, which is great. And there's some new CDC recommendations that are coming out to the local health department, Department of Public Health. We'll be putting out some additional guidance as well. So loosening things up as our numbers decrease, which is great. As far as the roof replacement, item C, we're moving along. We have heard feedback, and I shared this earlier from professionals that rejections are very common right now. They're not sure why. This is kind of a new trend that when an application goes in for the most minor things, this stamp could be there on minutes, but no signature, your application is denied. So we're doing everything in our power to get through our roof application on our first attempt. But, it's just the trend that we're hearing. So I'm passing along that information to the board. And Colliers has been right on it. It's been going very well. One of the things I mentioned earlier, one of the issues that we may need to address is the overall budget. And the issue there is really connected to COVID. The cost of materials has risen. Our budget may not be enough. What went to the town may not be enough to cover the total project. And remember, you have to have the town vote on the full amount, even though you're going to get reimbursement back on it. It's not the amount you're approving is not the amount you're going to get reimbursed on. Colliers, again, worked with some roofing contractors to determine if we were in the right ballpark based upon current prices. I mentioned we've seen everything from $16 a square foot to $28 a square foot. Sometimes that $28 is on a more complex roof. We believe that both center and hall school roofs are relatively simple projects. Not a lot of things in the way, but we won't know until they actually get those numbers in and the architect gets up on the roof and, we'll get some more information. So if we're under budgeted, it's going to require me going back to the Board of Finance and to ask for an increase in the project, which would be next week. And the reason why now that the architect is hired, we'll contact them tomorrow and basically give them a week to say, here's the information we have. Do you believe we're under budget? If we are under budget, if they believe we're under budget, the state will not allow you to go to the grant process under budget, too low. So that would require then an additional town meeting that the selectmen would have to do. And this is like the tightest window to do it for an April application. They're thinking the Collier's number that they believe right now, they see that we're about $300,000 short, which would be an increase to the town after reimbursement of $100,000. Okay, that's a 65% reimbursement. The Board of Finance would have to approve that. That would go to the selectmen. They would call a town meeting, and then the town would have to vote on that for an increase. Again, I hope we don't have to do that, but we've seen numbers all over the place as far as what's been happening. I will tell you that there is one firm in particular that does a lot of roof jobs in this area, and they've been very aggressive at what they're bidding. They've come in with some reasonable numbers. We just don't know if they'll be interested in the project. We hope they are. So in the end, basically what will have to happen is if we have to go back, we need to have that town meeting with approval of town meeting for me to include that into our April application. Unfortunately, we had a setback. We posted our bid and nobody could see it. We could see it, but nobody could see it. And we didn't know until we only got one application back. And then we asked the question, why? And we contacted the state and there was a posting problem. So when we reposted and we asked them to check it, we could see it and that we got 8 applications, which is what you just voted on tonight. So it's an update on the process. We keep pushing and we're moving as quickly as we can on this based upon the timelines we have. The reason I don't believe you need to approve the number is because it's currently a town project. The Board of Ed does not need to vote on the number because the town owns the project right now. Okay. Well, the HMS Septic Tank. I emailed this to you a couple weeks ago. We had a septic failure, a couple septic failures at HMS. It was pretty bad. We flooded the locker room showers. It had to be cleaned extensively. And thankfully Admiral came out quickly. They believe they identified the issue and it's resolved, but they uncovered some things. I mean, they found things that really shouldn't be in our pipes, not from people shoving things down there. And I mentioned that to you. One of the issues is the degradation of the metal pipes that have been there forever. And the metal shards that came out when they did the power jetting is not good. And I heard them say, and them being Admiral Septic, say several times, this system has lived its life. The system has lived its life. So it's something that we may need to consider adding on to our CIP plan in the future. And my fingers are crossed that this doesn't continue to happen because it's costly. Having them come out, camera the pipes, identify the problem, clean it up, scope it again, jetting, all of that. And it did flood one of our internal bathrooms in a different location. So you need bathrooms to keep schools open. So fingers crossed on that one. Read Across America Day. Let's talk about something positive. So we had a great, Read Across America Day. Amy Redding, the library media specialist, organized this. Typically, it's on a much grander scale, but with COVID, we had to scale it back some. It was on March 2nd. It looked different this year because of the COVID protocols. I read to a first grade classroom, and I'm going to tell you, I read to the entire first grade through Zoom, and I gained a new admiration for our teachers teaching through Zoom. It was very challenging. Granted, I had 3 classes, trying to call on kids, trying to see kids, answer questions. But it was a fun day, trying to keep things going, some of those traditions. So thanks to Amy Redding for getting that going, and for our staff for their participation and all of our guest readers. I would tell you one of the things that I always look at Facebook for to try and keep a pulse on things in the community and the schools. And I saw a post that we had a guest reader that was one of the students that is reading at a very high level. and that student was a guest reader in his sister's classroom, and the feedback was incredible. And so just things like that keep us going. It was really, really great to hear. Herb mentioned the budget presentation to the Board of Finance on February 26th. They had not seen a copy of the budget. We had sent it weeks earlier, but I guess there was a problem with an attachment, and Mike, the chairman, didn't realize it didn't go through. So I did do I gave them the full presentation that you got over 4 nights. They got the full thing. So we had our typical presentation that we normally do for the Board of Finance, and then I gave them the full presentation. They answered some questions. Did not have a lot of additional questions about moving forward. Herb, I do believe they posted the agenda for Thursday night, and it just says overall budget discussions on this Thursday night. So I will be attending, and maybe we'll get some direction. A legislative update. I sent you this today. I thought it was important. I don't think I've done this before. My Superintendent's Association puts out, they send us all of the education bills that have come forward. A lot of these don't go through, but I will tell you that it's 26 pages of education bills that were put forward. I noticed that I don't think they updated the bill link, so you can't click on the bill, but what you to see the information, it doesn't work, but you can at least read the bill idea and the concept. But if you go to www.cga.ct.gov, you can actually see all the proposed bills, when the hearings are, when they're looking for testimony, you can watch them. If there's anything that when you review this, and I'm not going to speak to any of the specific items tonight, but when you review this, if you have any feedback on any of these bills, you can testify. If you have questions that you would like me to see if I can get some answers, I will do that for you. Again, a lot of this information, they base it on testimony, and we don't have all the answers to that. So just to feedback on that. Moving along. Glad you gave me a chance to get some water. An update. I wanted to give you an update on the 1920 calendar and the snow days and the remote learning days. We have had 3 snow days, and you should have seen this in the attachment in your calendar. We've updated that, and so now our last day of student day at this point is the June 21st. And we've noted that on the calendar, and we've only had one, and you gave me the ability to decide whether it should be a snow day or a remote learning day. We've only had one remote snow day learning day. It went well. We had good feedback from it, and didn't have any issues that came back to me. But I know people have voiced their opinions. They love their snow days, and we understand why. It's everyone needs those breaks. But we've had a good balance this year so far. We don't know still if it's gonna continue as an option next year. We have heard remote learning will continue to be an option, but not set in stone yet. We don't know what it's gonna look like. All right. The staffing changes, we've had numerous staffing changes over the last month. We've had some departures, and obviously we wish all these people well. Sarah Hebert, who I hired as our center school social worker, I worked with her as principal. She accepted a job in her hometown of Woodstock. Big loss for us, but boy, if I can understand working in your hometown, I get it. And so, obviously we wish her luck. Christy Page was one of our utility staff. She resigned as things are loosening up with COVID. She resigned to get back to her own business. So we thank her for stepping in during a challenging time for us and helping out. Stephanie Mcfarland was initially hired by us as a utility staff member, then was hired pretty quickly as a paraprofessional, and she just took a job in her hometown. So obviously we wish her well. And then Mitchell Hudon was another one of our utility staff. He just took a position in Boston that's connected to what he wants to do with his degree in kind of what I'll call in quotes real life as adult into adulthood. And so we wish him well. So with the changes in utility staff, we've hired Tom O'Brien and Ronnie Gainey. They're both kind of part-time filling slots, number of days that we have, but we'll make sure we have the same level of utility staff. The number, I think it's 3.0 in the district, that we can afford moving forward at this point. So that's all the staffing departures and changes that we've had. And I think I'm done talking with that.
Okay. Item 8, financial report. That's attachment number 2. And everyone should have a copy of that if you printed it out.
Yep. So we've got some changes in here now that we're starting to apply grants. They're not all of the ESSER grant is not fully applied yet. But you can go down and see our bottom line right now. Balance remaining is $317,000. 3.6% will be, that number will creep up some as we apply ESSER funds, and it will go down some as we continue to spend some, but also with special education costs, outplacement bills, things like that. So program 1, we actually applied the fund to the utility staff. So that's one area we have applied it. And that's why that number came up from where it was. Minimal change program 2. Program 3, the excess cost is not in from the state, although we expect it soon. So that will give us some reimbursement on special education costs and bring that account up a little bit. We did pay some evaluations in school choice. We're in the negative again in program 4 because we're waiting for region 19. Diesel reimbursement is typical. Health services, we recalculated some salaries based upon the days that we had in hours. And we have ESSER funds that will be applied there towards supplies that's not been applied yet. Really no movement in program 6 or 7. Program 8 has some supply money that will be going into that's not been applied yet. Program 9, again, has that deficit because of school choice. We moved, I told them that we typically encumber my travel. I told them to move it back. I'm not going anywhere. So they moved back my travel. And we did purchase the Lexia program that will be covered by ESSER funds. So that brought that account into the negative, but it will come back. And then program 10, ESSER 1 funds are not applied. And that was to a portion of the utility staff for benefits. The next report will increase due to that change. So that's the overall. Any questions about the budget summary? Asked, sorry.
It's not about the budget summary, but about the transportation item. Phil, is that, do we have a contract with them throughout next year? When does a new contract come up?
That contract ends next year. We'll be negotiating next year, 2022. And I've already talked to Sharon Canoyer, superintendent at EO, that we should be considering a move to try and determine how we can do a similar agreement that like Mansfield and EO Smith have, because it would save us significant money. Say that again, Herb.
It would be a saving if we went in it with them.
We do. We expect that. And that's basically sharing a bus. What will be interesting is we don't know. It's going to have to go out to bid. And so it'll be interesting to see what that looks like and how it impacts M&J, or if you determine you want to extend that contract, that'll be up to the board and the negotiating group.
On the total of 317,000, is that going to increase? Is that what you said?
The ESSER, applying the ESSER funds, and look at, I hear about new money supposedly coming in from the government. I feel like every day. We'll see as it comes in, we can apply it, what we can. If it's got to be directly linked to COVID. So I do expect that the grant funds will bring that accounts up some, where it's applied, and I expect excess costs to come up some because that's a little low for this time of year. This is not going to be a year where you're going to return $400,000 like you did last year.
Okay, are there any other questions on the financial report? Okay, I guess we're ready to move on to committee reports. There are two committees, curriculum committee met and also the building committee.
Someone from the curriculum committee want to speak? And Ann's muted, so I don't know.
Anyone on the committee want to speak or mention anything about it?
I'll speak. We had Kristen and Erica with us, the math consultant and the language arts consultant, and they showed us the sample of each of their curriculum. They did kind of a snapshot of one area in one grade level so we could see what it would look like. And it was excellent. It started as the standard, and then we got to see too a scope and sequence, which was excellent, of everything going across the curricula. And then we focused in on one grade level and what those lessons look like. So I think they're going to continue now developing them at all the other grade levels. And we looked at one math and one language arts lesson. Anybody else have it?
They haven't completed the curriculum yet, but I was at that meeting, and Ann is correct. That was really intense. And they put an enormous amount of work and effort into developing that sample that they showed us. And they haven't completed it yet, but they assured us that they're going to continue working on the curriculum. And well, hopefully they'll finish it, you know.
Yeah, and I have
I couldn't believe the amount of work that they had to put in on that.
Yeah, I have to meet with them to determine just that, of how we can get them time. How we can provide them time to write, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
and get some of this work approved.
Especially Erica, who's also teaching. She has a full-time teaching responsibility, or at least a teaching responsibility. And Kristen too, who's also supporting all the teachers, you know, at the same time. So I think we really do need to provide them with time and help and summer, or whatever it is that they need to be able to follow through. But they're doing an outstanding job.
Yeah. I was very impressed with the work that they showed us. Really good thing. Okay, anything on the building committee?
I can share, and then if you want to add in, the committee appointed Catherine Viveros as the chair of the committee. So I got my last committee chair meeting leadership position and passed it along. We reviewed the documents. We set up a Google Drive for each of the committee members, and we loaded in a whole boatload of documents for them, and they're determining which documents will then go on the website in the future for the public, just to get the information out there. You know, things like the Fryer report, property information that we can release, prior school building committee studies, building committee codes for schools, things like that. They determined they're going to meet the first and third Wednesday of each month at 6:30. Next meeting, we are, and you saw Scott Pellman, and it was in the meeting tonight. Scott and one of his partners, Charles Warrington, they've offered to join the school building committee to just talk through the process, answer questions, just give a general overview of what that process looks like, because that is also what they do. So they're doing that free of charge, which is great. And they're going to be able to give the committee some just background knowledge. And then the other piece that I'll share that came out of that meeting was the committee is identifying a few questions to send a small group of people to meet, probably through Zoom, with the Office of School Construction and Grants and Reviews. And really with the intent of saying, look, we don't even want to consider this if you're not going to approve a grant for it. And so we're going to identify, the committee's going to identify some questions to ask that group. We know when they did that in Mansfield, one of their ideas that they had was completely shot down and said, don't even bother. It's not going to happen. And so that could help the committee. So those are kind of the big things that I had on my list. And I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, we also looked at all the possible land in town, what was town owned and what was, commercially owned properties, and nothing really stood out. We then went into executive session and looked at other available land in town. So that was very helpful. I think that kind of was a little snapshot of the big picture of what might be available. There's several people on the committee that still want to explore other options that aren't necessarily a new school, like adding on a second floor to center school. And so they're still considering some other creative options that were not included in all our prior reports. So I think right, Phil, I think we're going to kind of follow those and see where they go. That may fit into the visit to the grant office.
Correct.
In other words, if the grant said there's no way we can put a second floor on center school, then that idea is out. So I think, and I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Okay, moving on to item 10.
B.
Item 10. I've just been blanked out here.
We can see you still.
You can see me?
Yeah.
I can't see you. What do I do? I guess,
Can you see us, Herb? Or just not yourself?
I can't see you.
No.
So you can't see that we're making faces at you?
Just gonna have to go by the sound of our voices.
Yeah.
Are our names on our boxes?
Herb, do you have any other windows open?
Just yours. Your site.
We see you.
You want me to just tell you what the next thing is? Will that help?
Well, the next thing is the approval of the regular meeting minutes. February 9th. That's attachment number 3.
Would you like a motion? I make a motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes from the February 9th, 2021 meeting.
Gracie Anderson, I'll second that.
Okay. It's moved and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item C, approval of the curriculum committee meeting minutes of February 22nd, 2021. Do I have a motion?
Gracie Anderson, I move to
Gracie?
approve the curriculum committee meeting minutes from February 22nd.
Thank you. I have a second.
Laura Rodriguez, I second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion is passed.
Elena abstained, just to note
We
it.
did, okay.
Yep.
Okay, item D, schedule adjustment for second COVID-19 vaccination.
Yeah, this is kind of calendar based, and I didn't want to just make another adjustment to the calendar, but this is what I had talked to Herb about initially, to make today. Today was our first vaccination day, to make it an early dismissal day. And so one of the items I'm looking for is support from you on, to make sure, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. And what my recommendation is going to be is that our next clinic is scheduled as of today for Tuesday, April 6th. I would like to just make sure the board is going to support. I would like to make that day an early dismissal. It's still a school day. It's a Tuesday. And what that allows us to do is, not because our substitute teachers are getting the vaccinations as well, a lot of them, is that we don't have subs to bring in and cover classes. So that early dismissal allows us to get through everyone without having to cover classes here and there and everywhere. The other portion of this request, and I'm sure as you've seen, is that, you know, they're upwards of 20%. Sometimes it's higher. We're getting the Moderna vaccine. That is the vaccine that has been brought to Wellington. Is that they are seeing, in Eastern Highlands is reporting, you know, approximately 1 in 5, maybe a little bit higher, is having side effects. And if you saw the news the other day, Colchester Public Schools had to close because of side effects and not having staff. My suggestion would be, I would like to make the following day after the administration of the second vaccine a remote learning day, with the option, and I think you typically give this power to me, but because it's such a unique year, I wanted you to be able to weigh in on this. There might be the need for a second day, because certain times it takes about 10 plus hours for that side effects to kick in for some folks, which would be the next day for us. And then it's about, could be 24 to 48 hours if they continue to experience side effects. So that could make our, if it's administered on Tuesday, minimum day, Wednesday would be a remote learning day, with, obviously, if I have enough staff and things are good, I would know that Wednesday night. I would ask staff to notify me if they weren't able to come in, and we would make the following day a remote learning day as well, if we could. Now, I know you're going to ask, how are you going to do a remote learning day if they're sick? And what I've already talked to union leadership about is, I would make that an asynchronous day, meaning I would allow staff members to pre-record all of their lessons and make them accessible for students on that day, and count it as a teaching day, teaching and learning day. If they are well enough, if they are not experiencing side effects, the expectation would be do some synchronous live, right, during the day. The lucky folks, we don't get to pick our day. We were assigned a day. I expect right now we're assigned to the Tuesday. That could change, and that's why I don't want you to give me a date. I want the permission to say, yes, whatever day that they, you know, it actually happens, where that second administration happens, that would be the early dismissal day. The next day would be a remote learning day, with the potential of an additional at my, my decision based upon staffing availability. Because remember, a lot of our subs are getting the vaccine too, and that means we don't have people. The lucky folks were the ones that got Friday clinics. We didn't.
A question, Phil. Because people don't know whether or not they're going to be sick ahead of time, wouldn't that mean that most of the staff would have to be forced to make asynchronous lessons ahead of time because they wouldn't know? So it could be twice as much work for them, that they'll have prepared the asynchronous lessons and then not even use them.
Correct. And
It
so,
seems,
yeah, but so my conversation so far, and I didn't want to go too deep. I had a meeting with union leadership about, and I shouldn't say union, the union president, one of the union presidents. We talked about it, and she said the same thing. And I said, you know, what we could do is that it could be assigned things like, hey, you're going to have, 45 minutes of reading, that you're just going to pick your book that you're working in right now, and you're going to read for 45 minutes. So they don't have to do the full videotape the entire day. The reading for 45 minutes is something that's easy for them to pull back, because they can have their plans. If they don't use their plans that day, when they return, they're going to use them. Right. So this is all about balance between what's reasonable and, what we're asking our teachers to do. And I'm trying to be reasonable in that, and we would work through that solution together. Honestly, if they wanted to spend the entire time and pre-record everything and then take the day and just make it asynchronous, I think it would be fair to do.
I think, speaking from experience, that it's a good idea for us to do this. The first day after the shot, they probably won't be bothered at all. The second day, anything can happen. And I don't think they'd be in condition to do things, 100% really, or 50%.
Yeah.
I think it would also be a good idea. I'm sorry, Herb, I thought you were
I
finished.
don't know what the rest of the board feels, but I have my 2 shots now. Thank you.
Just going to say, you might want to give parents a heads up saying we're not sure exactly which day it's going to be. And it could be that we have too many staff out and we close for 2 or 3 days. We don't know how people are going to react. So letting parents know they may have to find childcare ahead of time gives you the flexibility that if it's Tuesday or if it's Wednesday or if it's Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah, Eastern Highlands is so busy. The thing that would change it, and we got our full allotment of vaccines today. They weren't sure about that, which is great. And because of that, we expect that we're going to get our full allotment the second time. That would be where we would have an issue. But I already put out a letter to families when I announced today being a minimum day. My letter said, look, plan on a month being out. I'm going to the Board of Education, and this is what I'm proposing, that the next time we have a vaccination date, that's going to be a minimum day, and I'm proposing that the second day could be a remote day. So, and maybe that's why some parents are on tonight. I don't know, but I want to notify them as soon as possible, and the sooner I can pin down, which I believe Eastern Highlands is saying, yeah, that's your day. We're just trying to be flexible with everybody is what we're trying to be.
What vaccine are they getting? Pfizer?
Moderna. Moderna, yep. A lot of other districts got J&J, the Johnson one, but we got Moderna.
This is when Iready will come in handy too, right?
We're trying not to push the Iready as much too, just because we really did. I think we burned some kids out in the month of March and early April last year before we made our big adjustment in remote learning last year. So, but yeah, we're trying to make it reasonable for everybody. Like, what's it going to look like for kids? What's it going to look like for teachers? What's it going to look like for families? Where's the middle ground? But I do think it's something I want to make sure there's, the board is going to support this because it's something that I don't want to call it a changing calendar. I just want to say it's just like a snowy day, and I'm making that decision.
Okay. Any other comments? Everyone is in favor, or okay? Very good, Phil. I guess
Thank you.
to go.
Thank you.
Good luck now. Okay. Item E, schedule a summer retreat. We have talked about this extensively. We've had retreats before, and you know what they're like. And this one would be in the summer, early summer maybe, or at a date that is convenient for everyone. What are your thoughts? Phil, do you have anything you want to say about this?
I mean, I think it's the earlier we can try and pinpoint a date, or even two, if you want to keep it shorter, do it instead of doing a, especially if we're still Zooming, a 4-hour Zoom is way too much.
Yeah.
If you want to do, a couple 2-hour sessions that are targeted, maybe 1 2-hour session, that's up to you. But I thought it would be an appropriate time to start trying to plan, just to get the date on the calendar. If you want to do something in the end of June before the kickoff of summer, that's fine by me. That would give me time to kind of get things rolling for where we want to push the staff, administrative team into next year. So it's up to you.
Well, I don't know whether people are planning summer vacations this year or not.
I am trying to.
I am.
Planning them. I don't know if I'm going to go on them, but I'm planning them.
I know people that are flying out.
Do you want to maybe
You
the
want
easiest
a
way is,
date? So you want a date of some kind?
yeah, and maybe the easiest way is if you just want to email Brenda and just say, look at, please, this is when I would not be available, and then we can try and pinpoint that way instead of kind of going back and forth on people's calendars right now. If the board is interested in doing some sort of summer retreat, I think it's probably the time to start thinking about it. So does that make sense to have everyone just email Brenda?
Okay, for the month, in the month of July.
Whatever month you want.
Is that okay with everyone?
Wait, I thought you said June,
End of June?
before school got out.
Can you unmute Elena, please, Catherine? I'm okay with any of those, any time in the summer. That's why I think maybe you want to look at the entire, I'm going to try and see. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Thank you. Well, I personally, of course, I can talk for everyone, but where we go on vacation, very often there is like no internet. So I won't be able to get connected. I think the earlier we do it, the better. I would really prefer June over every other month, over July, and maybe, I don't know what you think, but like first 2 weeks in June, that would be like really perfect for me. But I don't know what about others, just to make sure that we are not, interfering into our summer plans.
In June, we do have a meeting on the 8th, which is the second week of June.
And I can tell you the first week of June doesn't work for me because that's the busiest week of the year. It's the end of the legislative session. So after the 8th would be a little better. So maybe the end of that week. I don't know if you want to do 2 meetings in 1 week though.
Or maybe the Tuesday after, the week after. So not the 8th, but the 15th.
So do maybe people want to just send their availability starting the week of June 14th. It's kind of like 2.5 weeks there you've got left. And we can see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll come back in next month and maybe we have to hash it out.
Thank you.
What's normally covered on the summer retreat? Like what is the purpose of it?
Somebody want to speak to that?
Well, one of the purposes would be for the board to get together, and the board would have to decide exactly what they want to discuss. But I would think that goals and our mission and some of the things that we'd like to do the following year. I don't think we want to develop a 5-year plan necessarily, but at least have an idea of the direction that we want the board to go in. And we'd have to set a few goals to that effect. Maybe we have areas we want to improve on, and that would be a time to discuss it, set it up as a goal, and if we have a goal and a plan, then the chances are we're going to complete the goal. But it won't be just setting the goal. If we set something, the expectation will be that we're going to fulfill that goal and complete it.
Phil, would we have the results from the next set of assessments by that time?
Would definitely have Iready. I don't have any clue what we're going to have for SBAC, to be honest with you. I mean, they're still planning on administering it. We don't know what it's going to look like still. So I can't say that we'll have SBAC scores to go along with it.
But we would have some data so that we could at least have a feeling for areas that are going well or areas that might need some extra attention.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other comments? So if everyone will just let Brenda know the best time for you, we're picking the week of June 14th. So it could be the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. Not the 18th, that's a Friday. Okay. Ann?
Oh, can you unmute Ann, please, Catherine? Hold on, Ann, you're muted.
Did we need to pick 2 days for 2 hours each or 1 day, or how many days are we choosing?
I think it probably makes sense to start with one. And the reason why is if you do a couple of hours and then you're going to send me off to do some work, it's not going to be turned around in 24 hours more than likely because we're talking bigger picture. So let's just start with a 1-2 hour session and maybe we have something at the end of the summer as a kickoff push or something. We can figure that out. That's up to the board though.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so just pick the days during June, either the 14th, 15th, 16th, or 17th, or pick all of them and we'll see whether we can match everyone up. We want everyone to be there, okay? We're not going to have the retreat unless everyone is there. Okay? Old business. Placement on the capital improvement projects. I understand there was some reshuffling of some of the projects.
Yes, and so I wanted to give you this is an FYI. I took their document and just tried to break it up, simple view for you, just so you were aware of what they did. So the one is the year one, 21, 22, 2, 3, 4. They have a 5A and a 5B. The items that are in yellow here are the ones that are still in year one, that they left in year one. So the CES fire panel, the chip seal the parking lot and reline at Center School, the HMS fire panel, paint the library at HMS, the gym floor resurfacing, heat on the stage at HMS, and then they left the district building committee consultants in for year one as well. That's what they have that's in the budget right now. That was presented to the Board of Finance. That's what's there. The items in year two, sorry, this scrolls really fast, are the items with the red dots there. And so you have the window replacement, the clock and PA systems, the HMS AC for the band room, sidewalk replacement, the pave the parking lots, the boiler replacement, and then the other PA system. Now, what you're going to notice is year 3 and year 4. It's blank. And what they decided to do was they tried to prioritize some year 1 and 2 projects. And then in year 4 and 5, actually, sorry, year 4 is blank. It's 3 and 4 is blank. In year 5, what they tried to do is they made a 5A and a 5B. And basically what they are showing here is they put all of in 5A, all of the remainder of the projects in 1 year. or 5B would be some sort of building project. They wanted to try and show that it could either needs to be this or it needs to be this. And so it was just the way that they decided would be the best way to do it. And you know, as the building committee moves forward and has more information, this could be adjusted. Remember that the really, and I know this sounds weird, but year one is really the only year that matters because it's the year that's funded. They have funding sources for all the other years, but until it's voted on, it doesn't matter. It's year one. So I wanted to share that with you just to give you a sense of what the CIP group came up with as a solution. And there's been conversations about some big bonds. If you, whether you're building or renovating, or you're just doing all those projects, trying to knock out a lot of school projects in 1 year, along with some other big town projects that they've been talking about for many years. So it wouldn't just be a school bond. It's something they were, you know, having discussions about. So more to come, but I thought it was important to share it with you just because it's very different than what you had presented. Questions about that?
Yeah, can we have a copy of that?
Yeah, I literally, do you want my, did I email this to you today? I did not, sorry. I will scan this and do you mind do you want the one with just kind of my notes on it?
Sure.
Fine.
Perfect. Perfect. And what I'll do is once this is voted on, I'll adjust our master document too, but I'll just send you my notes page.
Okay, anything else on that, Phil?
Not for me.
Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, moving on. Present to speak.
Anyone that's not on camera, if you can either pop on camera or you have the ability to raise your hand. If you want to speak, you can raise your hand. There's only 3 people left. Jay and Kylie. Or here, I'm assuming that's you. Nobody's raising their hand, Herb.
Okay, we're down to board comments. Well, I'd just like to say that I enjoyed the presentation this evening, Phil, and learned a lot about the Iready data program. And I like the idea of having some kind of presentation at every meeting. This one was lengthy, but it was important, and we'll be getting back to it as well. So again, thank you very much, and thanks for all your work in the COVID-19. It's still hanging over our head, and we're making good progress. And I'm glad that staff responded to the fact to get a vaccine shot and taking care of that part of this. That's about the only thing. The only thing is I've been looking at Laura in a little spot up there all this time, and I see those beautiful flowers behind her, you know, and I look out the window of my house and I see bare trees and snow. But anyway, it looks lovely, Laura. I just want to say that I couldn't.
Thank you. It's the hope of spring coming, right?
Yeah. Okay. Comments, board comments.
I'll go.
Michelle?
I just want to make note that we're coming upon a year of since we first went out, and to say a special thank you to Superintendent Stevens and all of the team, both the teachers and all of the staff and all of the other support people, because this has really been a tremendous effort. And, you know, Willington is doing so much better than many other districts around the country. I'm on the phone frequently with people from other parts of the country. And I always feel so proud that we're here and doing such a good job. So congratulations. It's been a tough year, but the end is in sight.
Thank you.
See, I think I always want to go after Michelle because I can just say like ditto, right? What she said.
Okay.
You know, because that's been on my mind very much coming up on this year mark where suddenly we all shut down. And I am just so thrilled that the vaccination process has started for our teachers. Just what Herb said, that is just the best news ever, that the teachers are getting their vaccines and the light is at the end of the tunnel. So, and then I also wanted to thank everybody as Michelle did, and also Erica and Kristen for the curriculum work that they're doing. And I know exactly what you're saying, Herb. It's, you know, I wasn't at that meeting, I wasn't able to make it, but I know the amount of work that goes into that type of work. So just really appreciate what they're doing, moving the curriculum work along.
Thank you. Okay, I can't see anyone, so. Ann?
I'd like to thank Sarah Hebert and all of the others that have left, and thank them for everything they've contributed and wish them all good luck in the future. And thank you too for the teachers and the administrators who are just doing a wonderful job keeping things going and keeping regular for the kids, which has been amazing, just like the Read America Day, just making sure that the kids were still able to enjoy that and everything else. So thank you so much to all of them.
Thank you.
Juliana Testa, I have no comment. Sorry.
Okay. Donna?
Yeah, actually, I've been thinking about it a lot. A lot of the stuff I see on the news is frustrating and scary, especially when I hear about school districts that aren't open. And it kind of follows with what Michelle and Laura said. I really appreciate all the effort that all the different groups have made to open our schools. You know, the families are taking a part of it, the teachers, the staff, the community, and I just, it deserves to be recognized. And maybe some of these other places just need to take a look at what towns like Wellington are doing to make the seemingly impossible possible.
Very nicely said. Tracy?
I think it's all been said. I always end up at the end. But I do appreciate everything.
Well, the thing is, Tracy, you're not, I can't see you up above here. You're not.
No,
on
no,
the
and I'm
floor.
quiet. I sit, well, sometimes I'm quiet and I let everybody else talk first. But I also appreciate, you know, just to add to what everybody else has said on top of that, to say appreciate Phil and Herb, your presentations to the Board of Finance. I think you did an excellent job considering the fact they hadn't been able to see it, but I think they really understood what was being presented and what we had voted on. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Tracy. Did we miss anyone? Everyone's all set? Okay, if not, I'll keep in mind we have a meeting on April 13th. April 13th. Okay. I make a motion that we adjourn.
I second that motion.
Seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Abstentions? It's so voted. Okay, everyone, stay healthy and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Good night, all.
Good night, all. Bye-bye.
Yeah, have a good night. Right. Catherine, you can stop recording.